Welcome to The Space Between. On this final episode of Season 1, we are giving the listeners what they've asked for, a Q&A with myself, Alyson Rixner, the founder of the Space Between podcast. Very excited to dive into more about me, about my inspiration and reasoning for starting the podcast, and hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you very soon for Season 2. Hi, everyone. Time for some Q&A. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me with some fantastic questions, and I'm going to go through some answers for you guys, and we'll post them not only to the YouTube channel, but also to social media. So the first question I get a lot is, how do you come up with the themes for The Space Between? When I birthed this, right, because it's like a birthing something, I had, I think, 125 different themes. It was weird. I was in what felt like, for the first time in my life, an extremely creative and inspired phase. And I want to thank Rick Rubin in his genius book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, for giving me permission to step into that creativity. And yeah, I think I had 125 themes. And what's interesting is when I shot the first few episodes, I had bolded all of the themes that I wanted to kind of talk about first, right? To shoot those episodes first. And life never works out the way that we think it's going to work out. And that's not how it happened at all. Some of the themes I have shot, and some of them I still have yet to shoot. But what happened was even more beautiful. People started coming to me and saying, I love your work. I think this is really amazing, and I'd love to be on the podcast. And so I've had a lot of guests that I didn't even think I would have. And there's a piece to this work that I'm just allowing it to be and allowing it to flow. So the themes will be checked off the list one by one in whatever order the universe decides. But the goal of the themes is to talk about the things that are really important in our lives, because those are the conversations we need to be having with ourselves and with people that we love and care about. So the second question I've gotten is, what has surprised you the most with this work? I think what surprised me the most is how much it's felt, I don't know what the right word is, but it just feels easy for me to be on camera and putting this out in the world. I know easy seems weird, but there's not a lot of tension, right? I don't feel like I'm swimming upstream, if that makes sense. And that has really surprised me, because the first time I sat down in front of the microphone with my dear friend, Mr. Dale Gaines, I just assumed I would be nervous. And that nervousness really has never come. So I say that to you guys in just thinking about your path and your purpose. When you're in it, you're going to know. And I have an episode that I did with my mom on that, so check it out. The other thing that has really come about for me is how much amazing feedback I've received from the guests that I've had on The Space Between. And it never fails that when someone comes and records an episode with me, they take something away from it. And I have received the most amazing texts and voice notes and phone calls about how being here in this energy with me and with you guys has really shifted things for them too, and allowed them to step into new phases and things like that. It's not easy to get in front of the camera and to put yourself out in front of the whole world. So those things have been very surprising to me. So the third question I get is, who or what has influenced you to put this work out into the world? That's a fantastic question. I knew that there was something I wanted to share. I had learned so much in my past, we'll call it 20 plus years at this point, of being on a spiritual path. And there's just certain things that I can see and kind of just the way things in life are laid out, if that makes any sense. And I knew that I had an interesting perspective based on what I had learned and again, what I've seen. And I knew there was a way I wanted to share it. So I don't know. I mean, I think, again, it's my path, right? It's my purpose. And so there's always been this kind of inherent drive. But I was very private. I was very private on social media. I'm very open with the people that I'm closest to, but I was very closed off to anything outside of my circle. And that was by design. And I think there's a couple things that allowed me to kind of move into this place. Number one, I think I've gotten older and I trust myself more. In that, I also don't care what people think anymore. And I would say that historically many years of my life, and it just wasn't true. And now I actually feel it. So I think getting older and clicking into who I really am more has helped. There have been a lot of people in my path that have told me that I would be putting something out into the world. So in the back of my head, I've just had this kind of interesting nudge that continues to circulate, right? You are going to be putting some work out into the world. You are going to be more visible. You are going to share your voice. And those people have been very instrumental. And I mentioned it in another question that I answered, is Rick Rubin. I know that sounds crazy, but people that are inspired by him will really understand. He is called the godfather of hip hop. He's a producer, and the way that he looks at creativity and the way that he looks at art is very different. And if you ask him what he does, he will say, I do nothing. I know what I like and I trust my instincts. And he vibrates sort of on a different level. And that book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, when I read it probably a year ago, because I released the podcast in November and I started shooting in July of 2023. In reading that book, it gave me permission to step into the place of myself, my creativity, and be able to explore that and begin to understand it and honor it and enjoy that part of myself. And we are all creators. And that is a big point of what Rick tries to explain in his book. And so we all have this within us. And it's been very cool. It's been really scary and all of the things to put it out in the world. But now that it's out, there's a sense of calm and a sense of peace. So thank you to everyone that helped me, whether they know it or not, with putting this work out in the world. And the last question is, what drives you to share your voice with others? I have a lot of friends that are thinking about doing something where they put their voice out in the world. I know there's probably a lot of you that listen to the podcast that are thinking, well, I have something to say. I have something to share. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is if you have this part of you, it becomes louder and louder and louder. And at some point, you just can't ignore that anymore, right? That kind of voice that just keeps pinging you and the energy that pushes you into your purpose and into your path. And listen to that, right? Don't try to shut it down. Don't try to shut it off. I inherently knew that this was something I needed to do. And when you make a decision and you start to take the action steps towards that, it's amazing how the world opens up. And it's amazing how people present themselves and situations present themselves. It really is just incredible. And so I am sitting here today. It'll almost be a year soon since I've been recording, and I have never been more grateful. And I'm excited to see where this goes. I think that just like life, right, it'll continue to change, it'll continue to evolve, and it's in service to others. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. So those are just a few questions that I've gotten. I wrote them down and wanted to answer because I'm sure those people are not the only ones that want to know the answers to the questions. But please, if you want to talk about anything or if you want to reach out to me, all of my contact information is on the website and also in my link tree in social media and on YouTube. So we'll see you in the space between.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Space Between podcast. We are so excited to wrap up season 1, take a bit of a break, and we'll be back for season 2. It's time to catch up on older episodes that you might have missed, and please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps us tremendously. And share this episode with someone that might find value. We'll see you very soon in the Space Between.